Hey, what's up, Matthew?
Hi Bob, how's everything going?
Things are going well here in Denver. How about you're not in Munich right now? You're up north.
We're up north in a small town called Stova. It's on the Baltic Sea of Germany on the top part.
Right on, right on. So yeah, that's recent, right? You recently relocated there.
Yeah, we moved here. We have still have the Munich base, but now we've kind of set up a facility up here where we can host players and host teams that kind of come out, but more focused on just hosting players. It's more quieter. It's on the water. It's on the coast, and it gives us a more controlled environment when we have the players out here for our training camps or for the GoPro program, and gets them out of the big city life, gets them into a quiet setting. They have a chance to go into the ocean. They have a chance to go running on the beach, but also just to enjoy. What we notice when we've sent people to Munich a lot, it's you get distracted because you're in the city, and there's the nightlife is different, you know. So here we're focused more on the football and say, okay, focus more on the culture of Germany, limit a little bit of the nightlife, and use the nightlife opportunity to kind of work on video and other things that relate more specifically to football and the camp atmosphere.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. And that's so, and you've still got then your contacts in Munich and your, I assume, family because your wife's German. So you're doing a fair amount of travel back and forth, right?
yeah, the good thing is Germany is smaller than the US, so
Yeah.
and we have the Autobahn, so so that
Yeah,
kind of helps out a little bit of it,
we're
cutting down the
working on
time
that.
driving. Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope they change that, but yeah, that's one of the. I think it's we're looking at about 6 hours for driving, so it's not too bad, and it's pretty straight on the Autobahn if we go straight through. So
Yep. Yep. Right on. Yeah. So then there's the Denver connection and the US connection. So, you've got a fair amount of pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID, right? Your mom's in Denver as well, and you went to DU and played there. So you talked a little bit about how that all works, how you coordinate all that.
yeah, that's a longer trip for us when we make the Denver trip to the family and to the base in Denver. We're registered and based in Denver as our corporation, but me as the football aspect of it, I kind of stay overseas most of the time, just to kind of coordinate any activities that come into Germany. We focus more on the German side, but if we go back to Denver, kind of the history, it's home for me. It's an awesome city. It's where I went to high school. It's where I went to college, going to Regis High School, going to University of Denver at the time, Division II, small school at the time. Now I think Division I, top of the, they're huge right now with the amount of resources they have for athletics and other things for education. But that spring for me to jump overseas, going into Germany was amazing, especially coming out of Denver at the time where a Division II school had a chance to play with the Foxes for one season, and then at the end of the season, in the winter break, had a free option where I could transfer overseas. And I thought, well, why not? I'm young. Why not take this little plane trip across and see what happens, And it was an awesome plane trip, and it was an awesome tryout. Started out with Reutlingen, SSV Reutlingen, with now a famous coach, but at the time it was Ralf Rangnick. And now, if you follow football a little bit in Germany, he's coached Schalke. He's moved up to Hoffenheim, brought them up from the third division, first division, now at Leipzig. And the word on the street that he's been interviewed for the German national team coaching job when it opens up, or as a manager for them. So get a chance to talk to him now and then. Now less so than previously. He's so much more. It's more just emails now, and it's always nice to hear what he's doing, catching up with him a little bit, but having that influence with knowing him when I was at the early days of my career, and he was in the early days. This was his first professional men's team that he coached, SSV Reutlingen, and it was my first professional team in Germany. And at the time, we used to sit after practice in the pub, in the Vereinsheim, so in the club's restaurant. Everyone's gone home. Me and him sitting there, we're talking. He's explaining tactics to me, dreams of what he wants to do, because he's limited to what he has with us as players. I'm going, coach, what? Come on, challenge me, So he challenged, and we talked back and forth. But that was just the early days for me. Then I had an opportunity to move after that to 1860 Munich in the first Bundesliga, and that was a night and day opportunity. I think the most amazing story was coming onto the field as a substitute in my first game, where I actually stepped onto the field in the first Bundesliga game. And then the presentator announced your name, jetzt in unser Spiel unser Lieblingsnummer, the Matthew. And the whole stadium yells your last name out, Okoh. And then you're like, oh, I can't say that word. You're like, oh man, this is gonna be huge. And then you walk onto the field and you go, oh, okay, check that box. One of the biggest dreams I've ever had, playing in a Bundesliga game, and it just came true. And then the reality sits in, the pace going, and you're in the game and everything, and then journaling kicks in, and it's awesome. Hearing the crowd yell and supports and everything, and that kind of transitioned into going back to the MLS afterwards. I had a chance to play in the MLS, had a chance to play in Germany, obviously in the Bundesliga, in Portugal, and I've been really lucky, joyful, and blessed to have those opportunities as a player. And now we've kind of transitioned into, after my playing days, transitioned into coaching in the US, started in the college field. On the women's side, had a chance to work with some semi-pro men's teams, but kind of along the whole way was thinking, what else could I do? How can I give more back to the sport? How can I give more back to, I had a great coach at DU, Dave Clements, who made it possible for me to take that first leap overseas on a trial basis to try to go into England. And that's a totally different story for another day, but that opportunity didn't work through because not able to get a work permit because I didn't have a national team experience. And afterwards, looking back in hindsight, choosing Germany is an open football culture, and an open culture where if you find a company who wants to give you a job, you will get a permit to stay here. Where in England, he has to be focused on the national team and football. And it's more easier to come here and work. The culture is more open. And they have, ironically enough, they have a huge American influence because that whole Second World War thing, after it was over, there's the US, the England, the international state here afterwards, the world, to try to rebuild the country. And that's kind of put into motion what we're kind of doing now. Is they're used to working with Americans, they're used to having this influence or being this partnership between the US, and we're kind of transitioning down now into football and saying, well, how can we do that? How can we take these great athletes that we have in the US, give them the opportunity to say, hey, come over here, test your skills out, show your skills, showcase your skills, learn from the culture. If you make it, great. If you don't make it, you've learned so much in the time that you've been here, because it's totally a different culture. You notice when you travel around, I think you've had a chance to visit also in Europe a few times, if I remember from our conversations.
Yep. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that, especially think about the timing on that, because you're talking, this was early 90s. So you mentioned the Foxes, that's the Real Colorado Foxes, which coincidentally, they're actually reactivating that team as a U23 program this summer. So, as you know, we've worked directly with FC Denver here locally and their men's and women's programs. And so they've just launched their U23 program as well. And all of it has kind of this idea of continued development after high school. And your story is just fascinating because the timing, it wasn't yet, like now we're seeing like big time headlines with Pulisic and Reina and everybody, McKennie having success in Germany. So there's like real mutual interest between the systems kind of working together to develop players and creating real opportunities. But you kind of went in. I'm curious always about, the background that you had as a youth player. And how do you prepare for that? Because then you end up playing at the time, DU's a D2 program, and you're done playing at DU. You had a lot of success there, but now you look at, okay, I'm still young enough to have a go at it. I mean, assuming players hit their prime, typically 25, 26 or so, what happened? I mean, you described that, you get the tryout there, and you don't always want to necessarily make that big promise to a kid who's interested in playing overseas or in Germany that, hey, the tryout is where the magic happens. Like it's do or die in that 2-hour stretch. But I think in your experience, though, you had, just a combination of things that were working in your favor, not least of which you happen to have a great session on one of your earlier sessions out there, right? If you could speak a little bit to that, like a little bit about how your childhood and your background prepared you for that big moment. And what you just described, you get out on the pitch, you hear your name, you're in Germany. There's a big mindset piece to all of this, right? Like all of a sudden, it's, it's on. Like, you heard your name, you're in the stadium. How did your childhood and your college experience prepare you for that moment? The moment of your first training session, you knew coaches were watching, and then the moment where you got on the pitch for the first time.
I think if I started to end, I said, the moment you cross that line, and literally when you're getting subbed in, you're standing on the sideline and you're crossing the football line, the sideline, you're stepping into the field and you're really crossing that white line. And it's really an emotional aspect. Everyone has a different tradition, what they do when they come around that line. But I think going backwards and saying, okay, now, no one, I think even myself, everyone, we all have dreams of playing or doing great things, playing higher up in different careers. But for me, early on was just trying to push my limits personally. I remember I joke how many birthday parties I've missed because I wanted to go, for 1 more hour, go train by myself somewhere, or go join a practice somewhere because Lauren says, hey, you can join this session today if you want to come. We need 5 extra guys, and I'm thinking, I'm a 16-year-old guy age. I get a chance to practice with the Foxes. Heck yeah. Sorry, guys, I can't make the party. No birthday party tonight. Gotta go train. And everyone thinks you're crazy, but I think going back to the earlier days, those small training sessions, the time that you take out, there's this big buzzword now, 10,000 hours of training is what you need to become a pro. But I think that number is not so important, that 10,000 hours, it's what you do to get there, how you train, I started out as a keeper. I grew up in Nigeria, I had 2 younger brothers, and I was the goalkeeper because I'm the youngest of the 3. So they shot at me and I caught the ball, but the luxury was, I was a 6-7-year-old guy going out with teenagers, and because they always had to take me out, I always had a team to always train and play the whole time. So they would take, if I wasn't on the team, I was a practice player. So that kind of transition, even when we moved back to the US, and then started high school, they went on to college, but I would have my practice schedule. I have my U17, U16 practice. And then in the evening, I'll get a chance to go kick around with them with the men's team. Back in those days was the Denver Kickers. I wish they had the FC Denver back then, because that would have been an awesome program to kind of transition all the way through to be part of. But those small little opportunities was kind of set the stage for me. And it was always looking for the next challenge, the next way to take a next step. And same thing as Regis transitioned into, okay, where are you going to go for college? Then we started to list, do you want to go out of state? Do you want to stay in state? Do you want to play Division One? Regis at the time was a small private school. It wasn't big known for sports. And coming out of it, I got lucky to get a scholarship to go to Metro. So I had actually 1 season at Metro. And the ironic part, we played the conference game against DU, snowy field. They had to plow the snow off of the game. So we had snow banks. It looked like an ice arena. We put plastic bags around our shoes, inside of our socks, and then the socks, and then a bag in the socks just to stay your feet warm the whole time. And everyone was dying laughing. And we played DU and we beat them by a lot. And good news of that is I got a scholarship afterwards to go to DU based on that. If you can't, I guess the coach's policy was if you can't beat them, buy them over, same thing in the professional market.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's kind of, and that transition from my take into going into Denver for the University of Denver. And then that kind of took a whole different environment. Now I was in the dormitories. I was the captain. Everyone went on vacation, and as DU was a private school, most of the people came from out of state. I had the whole campus almost to myself. I could go in, take out all the soccer balls, go into the basketball arena and practice. And that kind of gave me a whole new inspiration compared to at Metro, where at the time when I was at Metro, they didn't have dorms. So it was a day school. You came in, you went home. And then at DU opened that whole private training up for me. The coach later on was Dave Clements. First was Albert, and then came Dave Clements, and he inspired me differently. I don't know if you're familiar with Dave. Dave is from Northern Ireland. He played for the Cosmos, played with Pelé, and played with Beckenbauer, Pelé, all those guys that they went to New York for the Cosmos at the time. So he had amazing stories, and he was a center forward. So we would be at games playing, and he'll call me over to the sideline, and give me little tips and ins and outs of these were the days where you would have literally a man marker that would follow you everywhere, you know? So he'll come into the sideline and this guy will come over and stand next to me while he's talking to me, giving me tips on how to get away from this guy, you know?
Yeah, right.
So it became a fun challenge, and picking his brain always, I always wanted to always talk to my coaches, and he gave me that avenue and kind of opened that up, where we just had free conversations on the road, sitting next to him on the bus, talking football, talking what does Europe look like, you know, what does it feel playing? He played in the Premiership, you know, what's it feel like playing in the Premiership? And then giving you pointers afterwards, hey, you should work on this, you should work on that, and those little things. And then telling me, hey, here's a combo for the ball strung, for the ball equipment room. If you want to go afterwards, take a couple balls out and go train. Nowadays in NCAA, probably would never work because all the rules and regulations, how much time you can train. But back in the 90s, there was a little bit more liability, and you had more freedom, you know. And if you're on your own and you had the whole field to yourself, was awesome. Transitioning that to the Bundesliga, I think it's day and night. There is absolutely no comparison, and there's no way anything he would have said or anything anyone would have said at the time to get me ready for that. Same thing as when I went into Reutlingen, the first team. They were in the Regionalliga. The fitness from coming from a Division II school or coming from the Foxes in the APSL at the time was day and night. Training 5 days a week, game day and a recovery training. And then in between, you're hoping that you get a day off. No NCAA rules to tell the coach that you can't train three times a week, 3 times a day. No limits on how many times you're required to go to the weight room. And I think that jump is what we're trying to do now, and make it easier for the guys as they come over, or as they start thinking about coming over to Europe, and saying, well, how do we prepare the players now, this next generation players, to be ready for that jump across the ocean? You know, it's not just the physical aspect; it's also a mental aspect. At University of Denver at the time, we didn't have showers, so we showered in you didn't shower in the locker room. You went home. You went to your dorm room. You showered. Then you came over to Europe, and everybody showers after every training. Even now, when you're coaching the youth teams, they all go in and shower. They come in jeans, put their training outfits on, go out to the field, regardless what level they are. It's the same thing. And that culture is not in the US. And for a first-time player coming out of the youth level, and then you get to a team and you see one of the first thing, everyone, you know, you have to bring your whole equipment, you're showering afterwards, and you're staying with the team to eat afterwards and talk with the guys that just elbowed you, stepped on your foot, you know, called you funny names because you missed that shot, or praised you, you know, or tried to tackle you. That's totally different. And how you handle that, I think, became the learning process for me. And it's not just the language also, but then you add the language aspect to that, you know. Mentioned with Ralph Rangnick when I worked with him. So the first thing he did for me is, one of our first conversations, we sat down at the table. They set up a private tutor for me for Germany. So I was learning my German language, but he made a list. He said, write down everything you say on the soccer field on a piece of paper. And then he translated that into German for me. So we had, you know, simple things. What do you call the training vest? Here it's Leibchen. In the US, it's a training vest, you know, or bibs. Here they don't call it bibs. Bibs replaces something else. The different colors. Referee, Schiedsrichter, the corner flags, and it made his job easier because then he knows what words I'm thinking of also. So that's kind of like the little points that we kind of focus with the players. When they come in, we make that little list for them and say, hey, you need to know these words. That's how you communicate. And then you just find that it gets a little bit easier, because now at least you have one word you can share with the guys. And everyone laughs at you because you say everything wrong. So you become then the next big joke, you know. So you try to work your way around that, you know. But if you look at it, for me, I looked at it as a fun challenge. I in the US, we learn just one language in school. You speak English. If you take Spanish, I took Latin. No one speaks Latin in present day, you know. So it didn't help me out that much. But even if I took Spanish or French, I'm in Germany, you know, it's totally different. It wouldn't help out. So we don't learn the languages to bring us over here to the top football countries to say. And those little small challenges and that kind of experience I kind of put into the programs that we're doing, and say, okay, this is how you could advance yourself step by step. Not everyone can do what I did or is lucky enough to have that opportunity to go to a team, make it, and then move to the next team and then make that team also in the tryouts. It's usually a step by step. There's usually 3 or 4 teams before you get to the Bundesliga. And I was lucky enough to get a third division team and then right away to the Bundesliga 6 months later. So it wasn't as if it was a year there. I remember getting a phone call 3 months while I was in Reutlium. And the scout, Andy Singer, called me up and said, I'm the scout from 1860, watched you play tonight and wanted to know if you're interested in transferring or coming to try out for us. You know, and I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, someone on the team is taking the pee out of me, you know, messing with my mind and trying to get a nice joke on me because they know I'm ready to move on.
Yeah.
And they go, okay, I'm ready. I'll play along with you. Okay, yeah, what do I have to do? He goes, oh, you don't have to do anything. You just have to say, yes, we already talked to the team. We're going to send a ticket for you for to catch the plane. I'm like, okay, interesting. Okay, this will be a funny joke tomorrow then. Someone's recording this. Okay, good. Sounds good. Okay, look forward to seeing, you know. But not everyone, that's a luck that he was at that game at that moment and saw me play. If he wasn't there, I wouldn't have left. I wouldn't get that opportunity. I think there's a lot of luck involved in everything that we do. But for me, is that driving factor. How do you push yourself each day? How do you make yourself take that 2 steps forwards so that whenever you fall back that 1 step, you're still 1 step ahead, you know? And it's continuous every day. It's continuously challenging yourself mentally. Now we've got to the point where in our day, Bob, when we played, no one talked about mental training, you know, tactical training, everyone knew, technical training, everyone knew. But now we're starting to realize that the mental training is more important than the actual technical and the tactical part of it, because if you're not mentally prepared, there's no way you understand the techniques or the tactics, and a lot of players fall out of the loops from that. And it's nice to see in the US that that's actually picking up more now. Here they have an aspect of when they invited me to 1860 to try out, I spent 1 week there, and the week was to see my ability. The scout already checked that. The week was check my social ability to see if I will be a perfect fit for this core team that the coach has. And if I mesh well together with them, then obviously physically they can take me anywhere they want to go to because they can develop players. So they looked at that and they said, and it was really 1 week of just social interaction. You stayed in the hotel with the team, you're going on the road, you're doing this from breakfast to dinner to you go to bed and wake up, you're almost like on a reality TV show. All eyes are on you, the press are watching you, everyone's gossiping, who's that new face we see at practice? And they see how you interact. Do you want to sign an autograph? Don't you want to sign an autograph? Why don't you want to sign an autograph? Why do you want to sign an autograph? You know, hey, and you have all these bombardments, and some people get burnt out. And I just looked at it as another fun thing that would help me develop as a human being, as a person. And I think that's one of the keys to me that kind of helped me transition to, as you mentioned, University of Denver, Division II. No one would think today, hey, you're a Division II player, you won't get a chance to play in the Bundesliga, you're already Division II. But I thought, as I'm Division II because I want to be in Denver. It's an awesome city. My family's here. Why do I want to go far away and play for Old Dominion or another school? I can stay here right away and enjoy everything because I enjoy football and I enjoy training. And I had the Kickers, we had the Foxes, we had so many other teams and that actually helped me advance in the process. And I think that would be probably the easiest advice if we're just talking, we talk about this a lot, is find a place that you enjoy, especially when you're young. Find a way to motivate, find the teams around you that gives you the opportunity that you keep developing, and then do your best. Just keep taking your steps. Every day is another step, every day is another step. And if you turn and you make it, awesome. If not, you're in a way better situation as a human being, as a person, because you've learned so much about yourself that now you can give that information back to the next generation. And I think at the end of the day, looking the way I am now, you know, age always catches up to you. The muscles can't do it forever. And physically, once physically you can't do it, then mentally starts. Then you start to coach in the atmosphere and say, okay, now I see the game from a different perspective now. think we've had conversations with when you're recruiting player, or how do you judge talent? And I think every coach has his unique way of seeing a talented player in their definition of what they see as talent. And I think that has now opened the door for Americans to come overseas. This old connection that we have from Germany to the US is now opening up again because of the success, as you mentioned, of the young players that are coming over that have had success. Now they're saying, oh, wow, they can still do it. It's still there. When I was in the 90s, I was the only American in Germany at the time. I think it's totally changed now. You know, you can see players even at the 3rd division, 5th division. I had a player who played for me in the PDL team, Delaware Dynasty, that ended up in a team in Frankfurt, but not at the top level, but just more at the middle tier. And he had a regular job. He was working, and we talked on Facebook, we talked on the phone. He goes, hey, coach, awesome advice. I'm loving it here. Language was hard the first year. I got a job. I'm working the same thing I'll be doing in the US, but I'm here in Germany. You know, I can go to a Bundesliga game on the weekend. I'm playing semi-pro with guys that are great. And I'm developing as a person also here overseas. And I think he was here for almost 10 years, and then he relocated back to the US and then went back to family. But those time that he was here for him was priceless. You know, it's an amazing experience just to experience it.
Yeah, I love that. I would actually love for us to come back and pick up our next conversation around those kinds of stories, because you shared a lot about that aspect where cultural exchange, guys are done with college, they're trying to sort out career decisions. That sounds like the ideal opportunity for a guy who wants to keep playing, or gal, right? Because it's increasingly the same would apply. I mean, Germany is a very progressive football country for women as well. So, and as you know, FC Denver just launched its women's program. And so all of the things that we're working on with you in partnership with Soul of Soccer and Soccer Electric and FC Denver and other clubs, not least of which is, I'm glad you touched on mindset, because that's another whole topic unto itself that maybe we can come back later and revisit that. There's FC Denver's U23 Summer Training Alliance in partnership with Real Colorado Foxes, a couple of other local clubs, is just taking shape for this summer. And for FC Denver, there's a focus on mindset. And we've been up at training sessions working on the self-talk. Like, as you were walking through your experience, you know, can't imagine all the self-talk, a guy, you're 22, 23 at that point, right? So I think that's a whole topic that we could come back and revisit, as to what was that internal dialogue like? Because you're absolutely right. I mean, here now we're having, it's been great to see this opening up around intentional self-talk, not necessarily positive either, right? I mean, a lot of the stuff that, like, United Soccer Coaches just ran a course that I took a couple weeks ago, and you know, there was an example from the instructor where he talked about working with professional athletes, with baseball players in particular, and how there was negative self-talk became a problem for an athlete, for a pitcher was his example. And then the shift wasn't necessarily to positive, from negative to positive. The shift was to instructional, right? To, okay, what's my role? What's my job? What's my wind-up routine as a pitcher? That's powerful stuff if you can get through to a young player, a young athlete, to shift, because that talk's constantly happening. Oh, my ankle hurts, or I'm tired today. Oh, I'm thirsty. Oh, coach is mean to me. Coach doesn't like me. All this stuff, right? We want to, you know, with this U23 program at FC Denver, it's one of the things we want to focus on, because the summer program's a lot of college guys on a college or pro track that are back in town in Denver, or they're just here to get some high altitude training focus. I'd love to revisit that as a topic in our next conversation if you come back and chat with us. And we've of course got our camp coming up, which is an attacker's mindset camp and player ID camp that you're helping out with as well. So that's early July, after the week after the 4th of July. So I think maybe between now and then we could come back and pick up the conversation if that works for you.
Definitely does. Definitely be excited about it. I think we've talked a little bit. If we see kind of the programs, I enjoy what you guys are trying to put together, and we're trying to balance our concept with what you guys are doing. I think it's a good fit with when you talk about the mental approach. So we have our 3 different camps kind of set up. We have camps just for individuals that are under 17. that they come. It's a private camp, and it's just focused on you while you're here. We have then the Go Pro program for players that are over 18. It's set up over a 90-day period where the guys can come out and spend 3 months here, train with their team for the 3 months, have tryouts, learn. We'll find a team for you locally, get you set up in a university, and then integrate that into staying here, and then you just transition with your life, how you go. But I think we've tried to find different programs similar to what you guys are doing, and yeah, it is for men and for women. I think we've had ladies that have come over here, and a lot of the women's teams here are excited when a female athlete from the US comes over, because it's a totally different. The US on the youth level for girls is totally different. There are so many teams and so well trained compared to culturally here. It's still young at the lower level. At the higher level, yeah, FC Bayern has their team. All the Bundesliga teams have a team, but at the youth level with the US, the way it's set up, so most of the coaches are so excited when they get a player interested in coming over, because they know they're receiving such a high quality football player. But yeah, definitely look forward to coming back, chatting, and always a pleasure talking.
Yeah, likewise, Matthew. Thanks for your time. Enjoy your weekend. I don't know if you guys have the long weekend. We've got Memorial Day coming up, so we're gonna kind of unplug, but there's a lot of soccer going on too. So
awesome. Enjoy it. All the best.
Yeah, likewise. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you. All the best.
Thanks, Matthew. Bye-bye.